I announced an independent assurance review into child sexual exploitation across Greater Manchester following the BBC documentary The Betrayed Girls. The review commenced in 2018 and its central objective was to consider whether, after major failures in the past, the arrangements in place today to protect children from sexual abuse are fit for purpose, so that I could assure the GM public about that and start to repair their damaged confidence. To date, 3 reports have been published, looking back as far as 2005, about Manchester, Oldham and Rochdale. Each concluded there had been very serious strategic and systemic failures, that children had been utterly failed and left exposed to ongoing and horrific abuse. These reports took a long time to complete, but were crucial in laying these failures bare and giving a voice to those victims and survivors so very badly let down, and to the whistleblowers who were not listened to. For instance, the crisis intervention team in Rochdale, who I have met twice with the Deputy Mayor since the publication of the Rochdale report in January, who had their professional reputations unfairly tarnished and have since now been completely vindicated. Following the publication of that Part 3 review in January, such was the scale of the failures exposed, I decided that a deeper and more thorough final review was needed if we were to be able to provide a full answer to the central question I set at the start about assurance. This is why I commissioned His Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary and Fire and Rescue Services and Ofsted to conduct it. Today sees the first results of that final review process, with the publication of the National Child Protection Inspection of Greater Manchester Police by His Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary and an interim update from the wider review of the whole Greater Manchester system undertaken by HMIC with support from Ofsted and CQC. What is being placed into the public domain today is very significant in terms of the assurance I have been seeking. On the national inspection, HMIC judges GMP to be good or adequate in all areas relating to child protection. On the wider Greater Manchester system, the inspector's report says it is encouraged by what they found and describes the Greater Manchester complex safeguarding system as a unique regional multi-agency collaboration largely meeting its mission of reducing risk and harm from child criminal and sexual exploitation. So, on the back of that, today, I can say to the Greater Manchester public, for the first time with independent assurance, that you can be confident that the Greater Manchester system is much stronger than it was and that children today are much better protected. Of course, we are in no way complacent and we will now build on these strong foundations to make the arrangements good in every respect. I will leave the Chief Constable and the Deputy Mayor to take you through some of the more detailed findings. Of course, what also matters to the public is not just that we have strong systems in place, but also that perpetrators of past abuse, detailed in earlier reports, are being apprehended and brought to justice. As a result of the review I commissioned back in 2017, doors are being knocked on and offenders are being brought to justice. Operation Green Jacket has so far seen 67 arrests. 1 person has been charged and will face trial next year for 6 offences. I am confident that more people will face charges in due course. Operation Lytton has seen 96 arrests, 5 people convicted and sentenced to a cumulative total of 71 years in prison. There are 3 further trials scheduled for next year where there are 26 defendants facing over 200 charges. As well as these investigations, there have been further large-scale investigations by the force. Operation Biro was launched in 2021 in response to a series of serious sexual offences reported against vulnerable girls in Bolton by two men. A sensitive and thorough investigation has led to these two men being charged with 200 offences, including rape, and the case remains ongoing in the courts. Operation METS is an investigation into offences committed against boys in the 80s and 90s in and around Rochdale and Manchester. Two men were recently convicted, and the main culprit has been sent to prison for 27 years. These are real results, and the improvements that we are seeing recognised today are real achievements. And I want to thank the Chief Constable for the transformation he has overseen in respect of child protection arrangements. But I also want to thank Assistant Chief Constable Sarah Jackson, who today is on her last day with the force, but has absolutely given her all to this mission that we have set, and has made a massive difference in bringing about what I'm talking about today. Also, former Detective Superintendent Jane Hyam, together with Sarah, both have led on child protection within the force for the last several years. And there are many other senior leaders who deserve recognition for their dedicated work. I also want to thank HMIC, as well as Ofsted and the CQC, for accepting my commission and for the rigour and independence they have applied to the process in the public interest. Finally, most of all, we thank those survivors who had the bravery to come forward and tell their stories, starting with that BBC documentary and continuing into this review. They are the main reason why we are in a stronger position today. We will never forget that, and we will always honour our duty to them, never to let such failings as they experienced happen again. I will now hand over to the Chief Constable to take you through the detailed findings from the HMIC report. Stephen.
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you to the Mayor. Now, I know that the language of learning lessons has become somewhat hackneyed over recent years. What the public rightly expect is for the learning from past failures to be fully baked into contemporary practice. And I therefore welcome this report, given its affirmation of the strength of our current child protection arrangements across Greater Manchester. Now, HMIC is an organisation committed to its public duty. It has repeatedly shown that it is not afraid to expose flaws and shortcomings where they are to be discovered. It is for this reason that we know that this is a credible, independent report into our progress and performance. I thank the Inspectorate too for their ongoing scrutiny of this most crucial facet of our ongoing responsibilities to protect our children from harm. This report describes major progress and represents a vast improvement on the poor practice, systems and processes which conspired to so badly let down vulnerable children across many parts of Greater Manchester in past years. Not only does the report describe strong and steady advancement, but it also speaks very positively to the Greater Manchester Complex Safeguarding Programme, a unique regional model of effective multi-agency collaboration. It is the strength of the GM model, together with a rigorous system of peer review and continuous improvement, that has been so instrumental in driving forward our collective performance. Every borough across Greater Manchester has played a full part in supporting change and improvement. And in addition to excellent functional leadership in GMP, I am particularly grateful to all of the Greater Manchester Borough Chief Executives and Directors of Children's Services for creating this exemplary system of collaborative and collective working. I would also like to pay tribute to all of those victims and survivors and their supporters who have publicly and painfully shared their experience of past failings. It is they who have shaped what we do today, and I do hope that the findings of this report brings them some small comfort. Their bravery and suffering is having a direct and positive impact on what we do for the better. This report recognises that the GMP of today is one that affords child protection the priority that it deserves. It puts victims at the heart of what we do. It works effectively with partners to safeguard children. And it has developed a well-trained, committed, and determined workforce that specialises in this work. I am pleased that HMIC were able to recognise the considerable strengths of our officers and staff. So much in charting GMP's progress is a direct reflection of their professionalism, focus, and compassion. I have taken this opportunity to thank them all for what they do, often in very difficult circumstances, in striving to protect our children and in relentlessly bringing offenders to justice. What remains of the utmost importance, however, is that victims, survivors, and vulnerable people receive a first-class response every time. And in this, I recognise that we still have further improvements to make. HMIC make helpful recommendations in this regard, which we have readily embraced and have already acted upon. We recognise that we need to do more to provide enhanced well-being support to those dedicated teams who deal with very traumatic cases on our behalf. And with the rapid development of technology, we need to strive constantly to improve our investigative and management capabilities in respect of online abuse in particular. We will do this whilst retaining a strong grip on leadership, performance management, working in partnership, and sustaining our ongoing investigations into non-recent offences. Sadly, we know that the continued prevalence of risk to children in society demands of us a sustained focus, an enduring appetite to innovate and continuously improve, and to be accepting of the fact that we and our partners will need to constantly challenge one another to prevent even the merest hint of complacency. The protection of our children will remain a key priority for GMP, and I am determined that we, together with our partners, will continue to work hard at getting better. Those most vulnerable in our communities deserve nothing less. Thank you, and I will now hand over to the Deputy Mayor.
Good morning, and thank you for coming. I welcome the report that has been published this morning, and I join the Mayor and the Chief Constable in thanking His Majesty's Inspector of Constabulary, Fire and Rescue Services, Ofsted and the Care Quality Commission for the work that they have undertaken. As the Mayor has noted, his intention from the outset was to obtain assurance that Greater Manchester has the right culture and best possible systems in place to protect children from child sexual exploitation, so that he could give that assurance to the public. So the Mayor and I are pleased that today's report demonstrates that the Greater Manchester system and practice are in a much stronger place to protect and safeguard children at risk of criminal and sexual exploitation. We're due to receive a further report from Ofsted next June, when inspections into all 10 local authority children's services will have been concluded. And at the same time, HMICFRS will publish a further report which will contain their full findings in respect of the peer review process. That report will also address outstanding questions raised by the independent review team when their report into historic CSE in Rochdale was published in January this year, in respect of how effectively GMP deal with investigations into non-recent CSE, and regarding the outcomes in respect of 74 then children identified as having been very likely to have been subject to child sexual exploitation. But as the Chief Constable has acknowledged, and as both HMICFRS's inspection report and a letter the Mayor has received from His Majesty's Inspector Michelle Skier make clear, we can already identify that while recognising the good progress that has been made, there is still more to do to ensure that the whole GM system is good in every respect at protecting our children. That work has already begun and will continue under my oversight on behalf of the Mayor. The Greater Manchester Safeguarding Alliance in particular will take forward areas where inspectors have identified how the peer review process can be strengthened further. The Safeguarding Alliance consists of myself, our 10 council chief executives, the Chief Constable, and senior executives from our Integrated Care Board. The first 3 reports commissioned by the Mayor laid bare the horrific abuse experienced by children in Rochdale, Oldham and Manchester, and the failure of services, including Greater Manchester Police, to protect them in the early 2000s. We cannot undo the harm those children suffered and the trauma that many continue to experience as adults. But we can and must ensure that no child growing up in Greater Manchester today or in the future will be failed by our public services in the way that those children were failed so badly. That will be my priority in the coming months and years. And the Mayor, the Chief Constable and I are determined, and we wholeheartedly commit to achieving that. Thank you very much.